She was 9 years old when she walked into the dark. No one heard her leave. No one saw her pack. And for 25 years, no one has been able to explain why a shy fourth grader from Shelby, North Carolina would step out of her home at 3:30 in the morning into a February rainstorm and vanish. This is the story of Asha Degree, and it's a story that refuses to end. Because unlike most missing children cases, Asha wasn't snatched from a playground. She wasn't lured by a stranger online. She left her house on her own. Multiple people saw her walking along a dark highway, alone, in the middle of the night. And then she was gone. What you're about to hear is based entirely on facts. Court documents, witness statements, police reports, family interviews. 25 years of investigation that has recently taken a dramatic turn. This isn't speculation. This is what we know. And what we don't. February 14th, 2000. Valentine's Day. It was also Harold and Aquila Degree's wedding anniversary. They'd been married for years, building a quiet life in Shelby, a small town in Cleveland County, North Carolina. The kind of place where people know their neighbors. Where children ride bikes in the street. Where a missing child isn't just a headline. It's a wound. Harold and Aquila had 2 children. O'Brien, their son, and Asha, their daughter. Asha Degree, 9 years old. 4th grade. Shy. Well-behaved. The kind of child teachers describe as sweet. The kind of child who colored inside the lines. She was afraid of dogs. Afraid of the dark. Her parents made sure of that, in a way. Not the fear, but the boundaries. They didn't have a computer in the house. They were careful about what their children watched on television. Aquila would later say she was terrified of the stories she'd see on the news. Pedophiles luring children through the internet. Strangers in chat rooms. So they kept their world small. Safe. Church. School. Family. Basketball. Asha played on a youth team. She wasn't the star, but she tried. She was competitive in the way children are when they want to make their parents proud. The Saturday before she disappeared, Asha's team lost a game. She fouled out. The final score was decided by a single point. It crushed her. Asha took it hard. Her mother noticed. Her father noticed. They wondered if it stuck with her more than it should have. If maybe she was the kind of child who needed to prove something to herself. They didn't know then that this would matter. That investigators would circle back to this detail. That they'd wonder if the loss triggered something. If it gave her a reason to leave. But that was later. On Sunday, the family went to church together. Asha seemed fine. Happy even. She went to Sunday school. They had lunch. They spent the day the way families do when nothing is wrong. That night, there was a power outage. The lights went out across the neighborhood. It wasn't a big deal. The power came back on. But the disruption meant bath time got skipped. The kids went to bed a little differently than usual. Asha and O'Brien shared a room. Twin beds. Close enough that if one of them stirred, the other would know. Harold checked on them around 2:30 in the morning. Both children were asleep. Before we go further, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoy true crime stories like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who'd love it too. 6:15 a.m. Aquila Degree walked into the children's room to wake them for school. O'Brien was there. Asha was not. Her bed was empty. Aquila didn't panic. Not immediately. She checked the bathroom. The living room. Maybe Asha had gotten up early. Maybe she was already dressed, waiting in the kitchen. She wasn't. Aquila checked outside. The cars. The yard. Nothing. She called Harold. They searched together. They called Asha's name. They checked with family members who lived across the street. No one had seen her. At some point, the math became unavoidable. Asha had left the house sometime between 2:30 a.m. when Harold saw her sleeping and 6:15 a.m. when Aquila found her gone. There was no sign of forced entry. No broken windows. No kicked-in doors. The door had been locked from the inside, which meant Asha had unlocked it herself and walked out. At 7:45 a.m., the Degrees called the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office. By 8 a.m., search teams were mobilizing. This was still the early phase. The phase where everyone believes the child is close. That she wandered off. Got confused. Maybe she's hiding in a neighbor's shed. Maybe she's scared and doesn't know how to come home. They searched the neighborhood. The nearby woods. They brought in tracking dogs. The dogs found nothing. No scent trail leading away from the house. Which made no sense. A child can't just vanish. But Asha had. And then, that afternoon, the calls started coming in. Two witnesses. Separate. Unrelated. Both driving along North Carolina Highway 18 in the early morning hours of February 14th. Both saw the same thing. A small figure. Walking alone. In the rain. The first sighting was around 3:45 a.m. A truck driver, heading south on Highway 18, saw what looked like a young girl walking along the shoulder of the road. He didn't stop. It was dark. Raining. He wasn't sure what he'd seen. But he remembered. The second sighting came around 4:15 a.m. Another driver. This one turned around. He'd seen a child walking in the rain, and something about it felt wrong. He circled back, pulled over, tried to approach. The figure ran. Not toward him. Into the woods. The driver got out of his car. Called out. Tried to see where the child had gone. But the woods were dense. The rain was heavy. She was gone. When police canvassed the area later, they found the spot. Approximately 1.3 miles from the Degree home. Highway 18. Southbound. Away from home. This was the last confirmed sighting of Asha Degree. A 9-year-old girl, walking alone in the rain at 4 in the morning, who ran when someone tried to help. The search intensified. If Asha had been walking south on Highway 18, then she had a direction. A destination, maybe. Or at least a path. Investigators expanded outward from the last sighting. They combed the woods. They checked abandoned buildings. Sheds. Barns. And then they found something. A storage shed. Behind Turner Upholstery, a small business along Highway 18. Inside the shed, they found items that belonged to Asha. A pencil. A marker. Hair bows. Small things. Things a child would carry. The discovery raised more questions than it answered. Had Asha been hiding in the shed? Was she waiting for someone? Did she think she was safe there? Or had someone else left those items behind? The shed became a focal point. But it didn't bring Asha home. Days turned into weeks. The story went national. The Degree family appeared on the Montel Williams show. America's Most Wanted featured Asha's case. Oprah devoted a segment to it. A billboard went up along Highway 18, near the spot where Asha was last seen. Her face. Her smile. Have you seen this child? Months passed. The leads dried up. The searches stopped turning up new evidence. And then, in August of 2001, more than a year after Asha disappeared, a construction crew working along Highway 18 in Burke County made a discovery. A backpack. Buried. Wrapped in 2 black plastic garbage bags. Sealed. Hidden in the dirt. 30 miles north of Shelby. Inside the backpack were items that belonged to Asha. A book. McElligott's Pool, by Dr. Seuss. Checked out from the Falston Elementary School library. Clothes. And one item that didn't belong to her. A New Kids on the Block concert t-shirt. With a distinctive red collar. Asha's family had never seen it before. The backpack changed everything. Because someone had buried it. Someone had taken the time to wrap it in plastic. To drive 30 miles north. To dig. This wasn't a child who ran away and got lost. This was evidence of involvement. Of concealment. Of a crime. Investigators sent the backpack to the FBI lab in Quantico. They analyzed every fiber. Every stain. Every trace of DNA. And they waited. Years passed. The case went cold, but it never closed. Detectives continued to follow leads. The FBI remained involved. The community held annual walks from the Degree home to the billboard, keeping Asha's name alive. Her mother, Aquila, refused to believe her daughter was dead. "I still believe my daughter is alive," she said in a 2020 interview. "I do not believe she is dead, and I know someone knows something. I'm not crazy enough to think that a 9-year-old can disappear into thin air without somebody knowing something." But the years kept passing. Asha would have turned 16, 20, 25, and still, no answers. Until 2016, when investigators released a new piece of information. A vehicle of interest. A dark green car. Possibly a 1970s Ford Thunderbird or Lincoln Mark IV. Witnesses had reported seeing a vehicle like this in the area on the morning Asha disappeared. Some said they saw a child being pulled into a car matching that description. The FBI put out a public appeal. Anyone who remembered seeing a car like this. Anyone who knew someone who owned one. The tips came in, but nothing concrete. And then, in September of 2024, everything changed. September 2024. The FBI announced they were conducting a major search operation in connection with Asha Degree's disappearance. The location was a property on Cherryville Road in western Shelby. Not far from where Asha had lived. Not far from Highway 18. Agents descended on the site. They brought excavation equipment, cadaver dogs, forensic teams. The property belonged to a family named Deadman. Neighbors watched as a dark green Lincoln Continental was towed away from the home. The kind of car that had been described in the vehicle of interest bulletin 8 years earlier. The search lasted days. Investigators dug. They sifted through soil. They removed items from the property. And then they left. No arrests were made. No remains were found. But the FBI labeled what they recovered as items of interest, which meant they'd found something. The homeowner's son, Roy Lee Deadman Jr., spoke to reporters. He denied any involvement, said his family had nothing to do with Asha's disappearance, said they'd cooperated fully with law enforcement. But the timing of the search was striking. 24 years after Asha vanished, 2 years after Roy Deadman Sr., the family patriarch, had died. Was the FBI waiting for someone to die before they moved? Did they have evidence tied to someone who could no longer be prosecuted? Or was this just another dead end in a case full of them? The FBI hasn't said. The case remains open, active, ongoing. And the question that has haunted investigators for 2.5 decades remains unanswered. Why did Asha leave her house that night? Let's go back to the beginning. Because to understand what happened to Asha Degree, you have to understand who she was. And who she wasn't. Asha was not a rebellious child. She didn't sneak out. She didn't lie to her parents. She followed rules. She was afraid of the dark. This detail gets repeated in every interview, every article, every documentary. Asha was terrified of the dark. She wouldn't go outside at night alone. She needed a night light. If the power went out, she'd get anxious. So the idea that she would leave her house at 3:30 in the morning, in the rain, in the pitch black, makes no sense. Unless something changed. Unless something was stronger than her fear. One theory investigators pursued early on was grooming. The idea that someone had been building a relationship with Asha, gaining her trust, convincing her to meet them. But who? Asha wasn't allowed on the internet. She didn't have unsupervised access to computers. Her parents monitored everything. She went to school. She went to church. She played basketball. Those were her circles. So if someone was grooming her, it would have to be someone in those circles. Someone she knew. Someone her parents trusted. Investigators looked at teachers, coaches, church members, family friends. They conducted interviews, ran background checks, analyzed phone records. They found nothing conclusive, but they didn't rule it out, because the alternative theories were even harder to believe. Theory 2. Asha ran away. Children do run away. Even young children. Even children from good homes. Maybe Asha was upset about the basketball game. Maybe she felt like a failure. Maybe she thought she'd disappointed her parents. Maybe she decided to run away to prove something to herself. But here's the problem with that theory. Asha didn't pack. She left behind her jacket. In February, in North Carolina, where temperatures that night dropped into the 30s. She left behind most of her clothes. Her favorite toys. Her backpack was eventually found buried, but it only contained a few items. If Asha ran away, she did so with almost nothing. And she did it in the middle of the night. In the rain. In the dark. The thing she was most afraid of. It doesn't fit. Theory 3. Someone took her. Not someone who'd been grooming her. Someone who saw an opportunity. Maybe Asha did leave the house on her own. Maybe she had a reason we'll never understand. And maybe someone saw her walking along Highway 18 and took advantage. This theory has problems too. Because if Asha was abducted opportunistically, why did she have items in the shed behind Turner Upholstery? Why was she walking south, away from her home, with apparent purpose? And why did the driver who tried to help her say she ran into the woods when he approached? If she was lost, if she was scared, if she wanted help, why run? Theory 4. Asha was meeting someone. This is the theory that keeps coming back. That someone convinced Asha to leave her house. Told her when to leave. Where to go? What to bring. Maybe they promised her something. An adventure. A surprise. Something exciting. Maybe they made her believe it was safe. The shed behind Turner Upholstery could have been a meeting point. A place to wait. But wait for what? Or for who? The FBI has been careful about what they release to the public. They've said repeatedly that they believe Asha left her house of her own free will. They've said they don't believe her parents had anything to do with her disappearance. Harold and Asha Degree were investigated. Thoroughly. Polygraphed. Interviewed repeatedly. Cleared. But the FBI has also said they believe someone knows what happened. Someone in the community. Someone who's been living with this secret for 25 years. Let's talk about the backpack. Because the backpack is the key. It was found in August of 2001, 18 months after Asha disappeared, buried along Highway 18 in Burke County, about 30 miles north of Shelby. The location is significant. Highway 18 runs north-south. Asha was last seen walking south on Highway 18, but her backpack was found north, which means someone took it there. Someone who had access to Asha's belongings after she disappeared. Someone who knew she was never coming back. The backpack was wrapped carefully, double-bagged, preserved. Why? If you're trying to get rid of evidence, you burn it. You throw it in a dumpster. You destroy it. You don't wrap it in plastic and bury it. Unless you're trying to preserve it. Unless you're planning to come back for it. Or unless you're someone who couldn't bring themselves to destroy it. Inside the backpack were items that told a story. The Dr. Seuss book, McElligott's Pool, checked out from Asha's school library on January 28, 2000, 2 weeks before she disappeared. The book was about a boy who imagines all the incredible fish that might live in a small, polluted pool. Fish from faraway places. Fish no one believes exist. It's a story about imagination. About believing in things others can't see. Did Asha choose this book herself? Or did someone give it to her? Then there was the t-shirt. The New Kids on the Block concert shirt. With the distinctive red collar. Asha's family had never seen it before. They were certain it didn't belong to her. Which means someone gave it to her. Or someone put it in her backpack after she disappeared. The FBI released a photo of the shirt to the public in 2018, 18 years after Asha vanished. They described it as a white short-sleeve t-shirt with a photo of the band New Kids on the Block and the National Basketball Association logo on the front. The shirt had a red collar and sleeves with the word "Runnin" written in red. The shirt was believed to have been made in the early 1990s, possibly given out as a promotional item. Someone, somewhere, had owned that shirt. Someone knew where it came from. The FBI asked anyone who recognized it to come forward. Tips came in, but no breakthrough. Not yet. There's another detail about the backpack that doesn't get talked about enough. The location where it was found. Highway 18, near the intersection with Ramsor Street in Burke County. This stretch of highway passes through rural areas. Small communities. Places where people know each other. The backpack was found by a construction crew. They were clearing land. Digging. They found it by accident. Which means it could have been there for months. Or it could have been placed there recently. The FBI never confirmed exactly when they believe the backpack was buried. But the timeline matters. If the backpack was buried shortly after Asha disappeared, then whoever buried it had to know the area well. Had to feel comfortable coming back. Had to believe they wouldn't be seen. Let's talk about the witnesses. The two motorists who saw Asha on Highway 18 that morning. The first was a truck driver. He reported seeing a young girl walking along the southbound shoulder of Highway 18 near the intersection with Highway 180. Around 3:45 a.m. He didn't stop. Didn't think much of it at the time. But when he heard about Asha's disappearance later that day, he called police. The second witness was more detailed. Around 4:15 a.m., this driver saw what he believed was a child walking along the highway, wearing light-colored clothing. He turned his car around, pulled over, got out. He wanted to help. But when he approached, the figure ran. Not toward the road. Into the woods. He called out. Tried to follow. But it was dark. Raining. The woods were thick. He lost sight of whoever it was. When police searched the area later, they found the shed behind Turner Upholstery. About a quarter mile from where the second witness said he saw the figure run into the woods. Inside the shed were Asha's belongings. So the timeline looks like this. 2:30 a.m. Asha Degree checks on his children. Both are asleep. 3:30 to 3:45 a.m. Asha is seen walking south on Highway 18. 4:15 a.m. Asha is seen again, further south. When approached, she runs into the woods. Sometime after 4:15 a.m., Asha enters the shed behind Turner Upholstery. And then, nothing. The shed is important. It wasn't locked. Anyone could have gone inside. But why would Asha go there? Was she hiding from the driver who tried to help her? Was she waiting for someone? Or had someone told her to go there? Investigators interviewed the owner of Turner Upholstery, looked into employees, anyone who might have had access. They found no connection to Asha, but they did find something else. Witnesses reported seeing vehicles in the area that morning, including a dark green car, the same type of car that would later become the FBI's vehicle of interest. Here's what we know about that car. In 2016, the FBI and Cleveland County Sheriff's Office released a bulletin describing a vehicle they wanted to locate. A dark green 1970s model Lincoln Continental Mark IV, or Ford Thunderbird. The bulletin stated that the car may have been seen in the area where Asha was last spotted. Rust or discoloration was noted in the wheel wells and lower body panels. The FBI asked anyone who remembered seeing a car matching this description in February of 2000 to come forward. They also asked anyone who knew someone who owned a car like this to contact authorities. The response was significant. People came forward, named names, provided leads. One of those leads pointed to the Dedmon family. Roy Dedmon Sr. was a longtime Shelby resident. He died in 2022. 2 years later, the FBI searched property connected to his family, and they towed away a dark green Lincoln Continental. The timing is impossible to ignore. Did investigators wait until Dedmon Sr. was deceased before executing the search? Did they believe he was involved, but lacked enough evidence to charge him while he was alive? Or is the connection to the Dedmon family circumstantial? The FBI hasn't said. Roy Dedmon Jr. insists his family is innocent, that they've cooperated, that they had nothing to do with Asha's disappearance. But the car was towed. Items were removed from the property. The investigation continues. There's something about the rain that night. Investigators keep coming back to it. February 14, 2000. The temperature was in the low 30s. Rain was falling steadily. Not a drizzle. Not a mist. Rain. Cold rain. The kind that soaks through clothes. Makes you shiver. Makes you want to be inside. And yet Asha walked into it. Without a jacket. Without an umbrella. Without any of the things a 9-year-old would grab if they were planning to be outside in the middle of winter. She wore a white long-sleeve shirt. White jeans. White sneakers. Light colors. In the dark. In the rain. As if she wanted to be seen. Or as if she didn't know she'd be walking in the rain at all. Let's think about what Asha would have needed to do to leave her house undetected. She shared a room with her brother, O'Brien. Their beds were close together. If Asha got up, he would have heard her. Unless he was sleeping deeply. The power outage earlier that evening had disrupted routines. The kids had skipped their baths. They'd gone to bed a little differently than usual. Maybe O'Brien was more tired than normal. Maybe Asha waited until she was certain he was asleep. Then she would have had to leave the room. Walk through the house. Navigate in the dark. The house had a dog. Family members have mentioned this in interviews. The dog didn't bark, which means either the dog knew Asha was leaving and wasn't alarmed, or Asha had done this before. The front door was locked from the inside, which means Asha had to unlock it. She had to turn the deadbolt. Carefully. Quietly. And then she had to step outside. Into the dark. Into the rain. And close the door behind her. At some point, she locked it again. Because when Aquila discovered Asha missing at 6:15 a.m., the door was locked. Did Asha lock it from the outside? Or did someone else lock it after she left? Here's another detail that haunts this case. Asha's mother, Aquila, has said repeatedly that Asha was afraid of dogs. There was a dog that lived near their home. A dog that had frightened Asha before. The route from the Degree house to Highway 18 would have taken Asha past that dog's yard. Did she walk past the dog in the middle of the night? If so, did the dog bark? Did anyone hear? Or did Asha take a different route? One that avoided the dog altogether. Which would suggest planning, purpose, knowledge of where she was going. The witnesses who saw Asha on Highway 18 described her as walking with purpose. Not wandering. Not stumbling. Walking. South. Away from her home. As if she knew where she was going. But where? Highway 18 stretches for miles. It passes through Shelby, through small communities, through rural areas. If Asha was walking to meet someone, where was the meeting point? The shed behind Turner Upholstery was about 1.5 miles from her home. Was that her destination? Or was she trying to get further? There's a detail about the shed that's worth examining. The items found inside weren't just random belongings. They were specific. A pencil. A marker. Hair bows. Small things. Personal things. Things a child might carry if they were planning to be gone for a while. Or things a child might leave behind as a trail. Like breadcrumbs. Investigators have said they believe Asha packed a bag before she left. Not her school backpack. That was found buried 18 months later. But something else. A bag or container that has never been recovered. What was in it? What did Asha think she would need? And where is it now? Let's talk about the basketball game again. The game Asha's team lost the Saturday before she disappeared. Asha fouled out. She was upset. Her parents noticed, tried to comfort her, told her it was just a game. But Asha was a child who wanted to do well, who wanted to make people proud. Losing hurt her. Did someone use that hurt against her? Did someone tell her they could help her get better? Offer to coach her privately? Promise her something that would make her feel like a winner again? Children are vulnerable after failure. They want to fix it. They want to prove themselves. And someone who understands that vulnerability can exploit it. There's another angle investigators looked at. Asha's extended family. She had relatives who lived across the street from her home. Aunts, uncles, cousins, close family, people she saw regularly, people she trusted. When Asha went missing, her parents called these relatives immediately. No one had seen her. But proximity matters. If Asha left her house at 3:30 a.m., she would have walked right past her relative's home. Did she stop there? Did she knock on their door? Did anyone see her and not realize what was happening until it was too late? Investigators interviewed everyone. Found no indication of involvement. But the geographic proximity is striking. Here's something else that's never been fully explained. The timing of the power outage. It happened the night before Asha disappeared. Sunday evening, February 13th. The outage disrupted the family's routine. Baths were skipped. Bedtime was different. Was that just coincidence? Or did someone know the power would go out? Did someone use the disruption as an opportunity? Power outages aren't random. They have causes. Weather. Equipment failure. Intentional sabotage. What caused the outage in Shelby that night? And did it have anything to do with what happened to Asha? Investigators looked into it. Found nothing unusual. But it's hard to ignore the timing. Let's go back to the second witness. The driver who turned around to help Asha. He saw her. Got out of his car. Approached. And Asha ran. Why? If Asha was lost. If she was scared. If she wanted to go home. She would have run toward the car. Toward the adult. Toward help. But she didn't. She ran into the woods. Away from safety. Which suggests she wasn't looking for help. Or she'd been told not to trust adults. Or she'd been told someone was coming for her. And anyone else was a threat. The driver didn't chase her far. He called out. Tried to see where she went. But the woods were dark. Dense. He lost her. Later, when he heard about the disappearance, he contacted police. Gave a statement. Described what he saw. He's never been publicly identified. But his testimony is critical. Because it confirms Asha was alive at 4:15 a.m. And it confirms she was alone. Or at least, she appeared to be alone. Here's a question that doesn't get asked enough. What if Asha wasn't alone? What if someone was following her? In a car. At a distance. Making sure she got to where she was supposed to go. The witnesses only saw Asha. But that doesn't mean no one else was there. Highway 18 is a two-lane road. Rural. Not much traffic at 4 in the morning. A car following another car would be noticeable. But a car hanging back, lights off, waiting. That could go unnoticed. The shed behind Turner Upholstery is about a quarter mile from where the second witness saw Asha run into the woods. A quarter mile through dense forest. In the rain. In the dark. For a 9-year-old who was afraid of the dark. How did Asha find the shed? Did she know it was there? Had she been there before? Or did someone guide her? The owner of Turner Upholstery told investigators the shed wasn't locked. Anyone could have gone inside. It was used for storage. Fabric. Supplies. Nothing valuable. There was no reason to secure it. Which made it an ideal hiding place. Or meeting place. But for who? And for what purpose? Let's think about what happened inside that shed. Asha's belongings were found there. But not her backpack. Not the items that would later be discovered buried. Which means Asha left the shed. Sometime after 4:15 a.m. Did she leave on her own? Or did someone take her? There's no evidence of a struggle. No signs of force. Which suggests Asha went willingly. Or at least, without resistance. The backpack becomes even more important when you consider the timeline. It was found 18 months after Asha disappeared. Buried 30 miles north of Shelby. Wrapped in plastic. Whoever buried it had time. They weren't in a hurry. They planned it. Chose the location. Made sure it was hidden. Why go to all that trouble? Why not just throw it away? Unless the backpack contained evidence. Evidence that could link someone to Asha's disappearance. Evidence they couldn't destroy but couldn't keep. So they buried it. Where they thought no one would find it. But someone did find it. A construction crew, clearing land for development. They unearthed the backpack by accident. If they hadn't been digging in that exact spot, it might still be there. Which raises another question. Did the person who buried it know the area was going to be developed? Did they bury it somewhere they thought would be disturbed eventually? as a way to make sure it was found? Or was it pure chance? The FBI analyzed everything in that backpack. Every thread, every fiber, every molecule of DNA. They found Asha's DNA, but they also found other DNA. Unidentified, partial, not enough to match to anyone in the system, but enough to confirm that someone else had handled the backpack. Someone who touched Asha's belongings. Someone who wrapped them in plastic. Someone who buried them. Someone who's still out there. In 2018, the FBI released photos of the new kids on the block t-shirt found in the backpack. The timing was deliberate. 18 years after Asha disappeared. Technology had advanced. Social media had exploded. The FBI believed someone, somewhere, would recognize the shirt. The shirt was described in detail. White, short sleeves, red collar and sleeve trim. A photo of the band New Kids on the Block on the front. The NBA logo. The word "Runnin'" in red. The shirt was believed to have been manufactured in the early 1990s, possibly as a promotional item. Limited distribution, which means not everyone had one, which means it could be traced. Tips came in. People who remembered owning a shirt like that. People who remembered seeing someone else wear one. People who thought they knew where it came from. But none of the leads panned out. At least not publicly. The FBI doesn't share everything. There could be leads they're still pursuing. Connections they're still making. Evidence they're still building. Let's talk about the 2024 search. The FBI operation on Cherryville Road. The property that belonged to the Dedmon family. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. The FBI doesn't show up with excavation equipment and cadaver dogs on a whim. They had evidence. Something concrete enough to justify a search warrant. Something significant enough to mobilize a major operation. What was it? Did someone come forward with new information? Did DNA from the backpack finally match to someone? Did investigators find a connection between the Dedmon family and Asha? The FBI hasn't said. But they searched. They dug. They removed items. And then they left. Without arrests. Without answers. Roy Dedmon Jr. told reporters his family had nothing to do with Asha's disappearance. He said they'd cooperated with investigators. Allowed the search. Provided whatever was asked. He seemed angry that his family's name was being connected to the case. Frustrated that their property had been searched. Hurt that people were speculating. But here's the thing. The FBI doesn't search a property without cause. They don't tow a vehicle without reason. They don't remove items without believing those items have evidentiary value. So either the Dedmon family is involved, or someone who had access to their property is involved, or the FBI made a mistake. And the FBI doesn't make mistakes like this. Not after 24 years. Not without being certain. Let's talk about what the FBI found. Or more accurately, what they're not telling us. After the September 2024 search of the Dedmon property, the FBI issued a brief statement. They said they'd recovered items of interest. That's it. No details about what those items were. No confirmation about whether they were connected to Asha. No timeline for when they'd have results. Just items of interest. In investigative language, that phrase carries weight. It means they found something worth analyzing. Something that could move the case forward. But it's not enough for an arrest. Not yet. The dark green Lincoln Continental that was towed from the property matched the description of the vehicle of interest released in 2016. Same make and model. Same color. Same era. Rust in the wheel wells. Discoloration on the lower panels. Exactly what the FBI had described. But matching a description doesn't prove guilt. Hundreds of cars probably fit that description in North Carolina in 2000. The question is, was this specific car in the area when Asha disappeared? And if so, who was driving it? Roy Dedmon Sr. died in June of 2022. The FBI search happened in September of 2024. 2 years and 3 months later. That gap matters. Because if Dedmon Sr. was a suspect, the FBI couldn't question him anymore. They couldn't pressure him for answers. They couldn't use interrogation techniques to break him down. He was beyond reach. But his property wasn't. His belongings weren't. His secrets weren't. Here's what we know about Roy Dedmon Sr. He was a Shelby resident for decades. He lived on Cherryville Road, not far from where Asha disappeared. He owned vehicles that matched the FBI's description. And according to investigators, he had some connection to the area where Asha was last seen. What that connection was, the FBI hasn't specified. But it was enough to justify searching his property. 24 years after the crime. 2 years after his death. There's another possibility that hasn't been discussed much. What if Deadman Sr. wasn't the perpetrator? What if he was covering for someone else? A family member? A friend? Someone he was protecting? That would explain why the FBI waited until after his death. If Deadman Sr. was the barrier, his passing would remove that obstacle. People who were afraid to talk while he was alive might come forward after his death. Evidence he'd hidden might surface. Stories he'd controlled might change. Investigators have been clear about one thing. They don't believe Asha's parents were involved. Harold and Asha Degree have been investigated, interviewed, and cleared. They've cooperated fully with law enforcement for 25 years. They've never wavered from their account of what happened that night. They've never been caught in a lie. And they've never stopped searching for their daughter. That kind of consistency, over that length of time, under that level of scrutiny, is nearly impossible to fake. Especially when you're grieving. Especially when the entire world is watching. But clearing the parents doesn't answer the fundamental question. Why did Asha leave? Because she did leave. The evidence is undeniable. 2 witnesses saw her walking along Highway 18. Her belongings were found in the shed. Her backpack was recovered miles away. She wasn't taken from her bed. She walked out the door. So what made her do it? One theory that keeps resurfacing involves grooming, but not in the way people usually think. Not someone from the internet. Someone from her real life. Someone who had access to her over time. Someone who could build trust slowly. Who could plan ideas. Who could make leaving seem like an adventure instead of a danger. Think about how grooming works. It starts small. A compliment. A kindness. Special attention. Then it escalates. Secrets. Gifts. Promises. Don't tell your parents. This is just between us. They wouldn't understand. Over time, the groomer becomes the most important person in the child's world. More important than parents. More important than fear. More important than safety. If someone was grooming Asha, they would have needed regular access to her. Which brings us back to her circles. School. Church. Basketball. Those were the only places Asha went without her parents present. So investigators looked at everyone in those circles. Teachers at Falston Elementary School. The principal. The janitor. The lunch staff. Everyone. Coaches from the basketball league. Other parents. Volunteers. Referees. Everyone. Members of her church. Sunday school teachers. Youth leaders. Congregation members. Everyone. They ran background checks. Conducted interviews. Looked for patterns. Red flags. Previous complaints. Suspicious behavior. And they found nothing that led to an arrest. But that doesn't mean they found nothing. Here's the problem with investigating grooming. It often leaves no physical evidence. No forensics. No DNA. No witnesses. Just a relationship. A connection between an adult and a child that looks innocent on the surface. Until it isn't. And by the time anyone realizes what's happening, the damage is done. The child has been conditioned. Manipulated. Convinced that the adult has their best interests at heart. Convinced that leaving home at 3:30 in the morning is a good idea. Convinced that running into the woods when help arrives is the right choice. Let's think about what Asha might have been told. Meet me at 3:30. I'll be waiting. Don't bring a jacket. You won't need it. We won't be outside long. If anyone tries to stop you, run. Don't trust them. They'll ruin everything. This is our secret. Our adventure. Your parents can't know. Statements like these would explain everything. Why Asha left without proper clothing. Why she walked with purpose. Why she ran from the driver who tried to help. Why she ended up in the shed. She was following instructions. From someone she trusted. Someone who had convinced her this was safe. But then what happened? If Asha was meeting someone at the shed, where did they go? The backpack suggests she went somewhere. At least temporarily. Because the backpack wasn't buried immediately. It was found 18 months later. Which means someone held onto it for a while. Someone who eventually decided they needed to get rid of it. But not destroy it. Bury it. Why? There's a psychological profile often associated with people who bury evidence instead of destroying it. They can't let go. The object has meaning. It represents something. A connection to the victim. A memory of what happened. A trophy. Destroying it would feel like erasing that connection. But keeping it is too dangerous. So they bury it. Where they think no one will look. Where they can visit it if they want. Where it stays connected to them, in some way. It's a form of possession. Even in disposal. The New Kids on the Block t-shirt is critical for another reason. It wasn't Asha's. Which means it came from someone else. Someone who either gave it to her before she disappeared. Or someone who put it in her backpack after. If it was given to her before, It could be a gift from the groomer, a token, a symbol of their relationship, something to make Asha feel special. If it was placed in the backpack after its staging, someone trying to create a narrative, trying to suggest Asha ran away with belongings that weren't hers, trying to make it look like she had a secret life her parents didn't know about. Either way, the shirt is evidence of contact, of involvement, of guilt. The FBI's release of the shirt photo in 2018 was strategic. They waited 18 years. Why? Because they were hoping someone would see it and remember. Not just anyone. Someone specific. Someone who owned that shirt. Or someone who knew who owned it. Someone whose memory might have faded over time. Someone who might have forgotten they'd seen Asha with it. Or someone who'd been protecting a secret for nearly 2 decades and was finally ready to talk. Did the photo release work? The FBI hasn't said. But 2 years later, in 2020, they announced a $50,000 reward for information leading to Asha's whereabouts. That's a significant amount. It signals desperation. Or it signals they're close. Close enough that one more piece of information could break the case. Close enough that they're willing to pay for it. Then came the 2024 search. 4 years after the reward was announced. Which suggests something happened in those 4 years. A tip came in. DNA results came back. Someone talked. Something changed. And it pointed to the Deadman property. Let's assume for a moment that the FBI is right. That the property on Cherryville Road is connected to Asha's disappearance. What does that mean? It means Asha could have been taken there. Either before or after she was last seen on Highway 18. It means someone at that property had knowledge of what happened. It means evidence might still be there. Evidence that survived 24 years. Evidence that could finally answer the question everyone's been asking. What happened to Asha Degree? But here's what's frustrating. The FBI searched. They dug. They analyzed. They removed items. And then silence. No arrests. No charges. No public updates. Which means one of 3 things. 1. The evidence isn't strong enough yet. 2. They're building a case and don't want to tip off the suspect. 3. They searched the wrong place. My guess? It's number 2. Because the FBI doesn't make moves like this without confidence. They don't execute a search warrant on a property connected to a 24-year-old case unless they know something. They don't tow a vehicle unless they believe it's relevant. They don't remove items unless those items have value. So they know something. They're just not ready to show their hand. Which brings us to the waiting. Asha's family has been waiting for 25 years. Waiting for answers. Waiting for closure. Waiting for someone to tell them what happened to their daughter. Asha Degree has said she still believes Asha is alive. That's hope. Or denial. Or both. Because the alternative is unbearable. The alternative is accepting that her daughter has been gone for a quarter of a century. That she'll never see her grow up. Never hear her voice again. Never hold her. That's a grief most people can't comprehend. So Aquila holds on to hope. And who can blame her? But statistically, the chances of Asha being alive are almost 0. Children who disappear under these circumstances don't usually survive. Especially not for 25 years. Especially not without contact. Especially not without someone, somewhere, recognizing them. Asha's face has been on billboards. On television. On the internet. For decades. If she were alive and free, someone would have seen her. Recognized her. Called it in. Unless she's not free. Unless she's been held somewhere. Hidden. Controlled. That's possible. It's rare, but it's possible. There have been cases where children were found alive decades after being abducted. J.C. Dugard. Elizabeth Smart. The Cleveland kidnapping victims. They survived. They were recovered. They rebuilt their lives. Could Asha be one of them? Could she still be out there, waiting to be found? The FBI hasn't ruled it out. They've never declared Asha deceased. The case is classified as a missing persons investigation, not a homicide, which means they're still looking for a living person. Or at least, they're not ready to stop. There's a photograph of Asha that gets used in almost every article about her case. She's smiling, wearing beads in her hair, looking directly at the camera. She looks happy, safe, loved. That photograph was taken not long before she disappeared. And every time someone shares her story, that's the image they use. Asha at 9. Frozen in time. But if she's alive today, she's 34 years old. A woman. Not the child in the photograph. And that creates a problem. When people look for missing children, they look for children. They don't look for adults. They don't imagine what that child might look like 25 years later. Age progression photos help. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has created multiple age-progressed images of Asha. What she might look like at 16, at 21, at 30. But those images are guesses. Educated guesses based on facial structure and family genetics. But still guesses. The real Asha, if she's alive, might look nothing like those projections. She might have changed her hair, gained weight, lost weight. She might have scars, tattoos, a completely different appearance, which makes finding her nearly impossible, unless she comes forward herself, or unless someone who knows where she is decides to talk. Let's go back to the physical evidence. Because in a case like this, physical evidence is everything. The items found in the shed behind Turner Upholstery. The backpack buried along Highway 18. The New Kids on the Block t-shirt. The dark green Lincoln Continental. The items of interest removed from the Deadman property. Each piece is a fragment of the story. But none of them, individually, solves the case. The pencil and marker found in the shed. Were they Asha's? Did she bring them with her when she left home? Or were they already in the shed? The FBI has never confirmed. But if they were Asha's, it suggests she was planning something. You don't bring a pencil and marker unless you're going to write something. A note. A letter. A message. Was Asha planning to leave a message for someone? Or was she told to bring those items? The hair bows are more personal. Asha wore hair bows regularly. They were part of her appearance. Something she would have grabbed intentionally, not randomly, which suggests she was thinking about how she looked, about presenting herself to someone. You don't worry about hair bows if you're running away in a panic. You worry about them if you're meeting someone you want to impress. The Dr. Seuss book found in the buried backpack raises its own questions. McElligott's pool was checked out from the school library on January 20th, 17 days before Asha disappeared. Did she check it out herself? Or did someone check it out for her? School library records would show who signed it out. But the FBI hasn't released that information, which could mean it was Asha, or it could mean it was someone they're still investigating. The book itself is interesting. It's about a boy who's told by an adult that his fishing spot is worthless, that the pool he's fishing in is too small, too polluted, to contain anything valuable. But the boy refuses to believe it. He imagines all the incredible fish that could be swimming beneath the surface. Fish from distant oceans. Fish no one has ever seen. Fish that prove the adult wrong. It's a story about imagination triumphing over cynicism. About believing in possibility when everyone else sees impossibility. Is that why Asha had the book? Because she was imagining something incredible? Something no one else could see? An adventure? An escape? A different life? Did someone feed that imagination? Encourage it? Weaponize it? The New Kids on the Block t-shirt is the most perplexing item. Because it doesn't fit. Asha wasn't a New Kids on the Block fan. The band was popular in the late 80s and early 90s. By 2000, they'd broken up. Asha was 9 years old, born in 1990. She would have been too young to remember them at their peak. And her family confirmed she didn't own the shirt. Had never seen it before. So where did it come from? The FBI's description of the shirt was specific. White, short sleeves, red collar and trim. The word "Runnin" in red lettering. An NBA logo. A promotional item, likely from the early 90s. That specificity matters. Because it means the shirt wasn't mass-produced. It wasn't sold in stores nationwide. It was limited, given out at a specific event or through a specific promotion. Which means it can be traced. At least theoretically. Here's what the FBI was hoping when they released that photo. That someone would remember the promotion. That someone would remember receiving the shirt. That someone would remember giving it away. Or selling it. Or throwing it in a donation box. Because shirts like that don't just disappear. They get passed down. Donated. Resold. They end up in thrift stores. Yard sales. Secondhand shops. Someone, somewhere, handled that shirt between the early 90s and February of 2000. And that person might know who gave it to Asha. Or who put it in her backpack. Let's talk about the location where the backpack was found. Highway 18, near the intersection with Ramsor Street in Burke County. 30 miles north of Shelby. That's not a short distance. It's a deliberate drive. Whoever buried the backpack didn't do it on a whim. They got in a car, drove north, found a spot, dug. They had time. They had privacy. They weren't panicking. The burial itself is telling. The backpack was wrapped in 2 black plastic garbage bags, sealed tightly, protected from the elements, then buried in the ground. That's preservation, not disposal. If you're disposing of evidence, you don't wrap it carefully. You don't protect it from decay. You burn it. You throw it in a river. You destroy it. But this person wanted the backpack intact. For later? For sentimental reasons? Or because they couldn't bring themselves to destroy something that belonged to Asha? There's a psychological term for this behavior. Cognitive dissonance. The discomfort of holding two conflicting beliefs at the same time. In this case, I did something terrible, and I care about this child. People who harm children they know often experience this. They justify their actions, rationalize them, but they can't fully erase the connection. So they preserve things. Keep mementos. Bury evidence instead of destroying it. It's a way of maintaining control while managing guilt. Now let's talk about the Deadman property. The FBI didn't just search the land. They searched structures, vehicles, outbuildings. They brought cadaver dogs. Dogs trained to detect human remains. Even remains that have been buried for decades. The fact that they brought those dogs suggests they believed Asha might be on that property, or had been on that property at some point. Cadaver dogs are incredibly accurate. They can detect decomposition in soil long after a body has been removed. They can smell remains through concrete, through water, through layers of earth. If Asha's body had been on that property, the dogs would have found something. But the FBI reported no remains, which means one of several things. 1. Asha was never there. 2. Asha was there, but was removed before decomposition began. 3. Asha was there but the dogs missed it. 4. Asha is still alive. The FBI removed items of interest from the property. What could those items be? Clothing, personal effects, tools used in a crime, documents, photographs, evidence of contact with Asha, soil samples, trace evidence, DNA, anything that could link the property or someone connected to it to Asha's disappearance. But without arrests, we don't know what they found or what it means. Here's what we do know. The FBI doesn't give up on cases like this, especially cases involving children, especially cases with this much public attention. They have resources, technology, expertise, and they have something else. Time. Because unlike local police departments, the FBI doesn't have to worry about budget constraints or shifting priorities. They can work a case for decades if necessary. And they do. The Asha Degree case has been assigned to the FBI's Violent Crimes Against Children Unit, one of the most elite investigative teams in the country. They specialize in long-term missing children cases. They use cutting-edge forensics, DNA analysis, geographic profiling. They build cases slowly, methodically, and when they move with certainty. The 2024 search of the Deadman property wasn't a shot in the dark. It was a calculated move, based on evidence, based on leads, based on years of investigation. So what happens now? The FBI continues to analyze the items they recovered. They continue to interview witnesses. They continue to follow leads. And they wait for someone to make a mistake, for someone to talk, for technology to advance enough to extract DNA from evidence that's been sitting in storage for 25 years. DNA technology has come a long way since 2000. Touch DNA, genealogical DNA, familial DNA searching, techniques that didn't exist when Asha disappeared, techniques that have solved cold cases going back decades. The backpack found in 2001 was analyzed with the technology available at the time. But that technology was primitive compared to what exists now. The FBI could retest that evidence today, extract DNA that was previously undetectable, run it through databases that didn't exist 20 years ago, match it to family trees, to genetic relatives, to suspects. This is how the Golden State Killer was caught, how countless cold cases have been solved in recent years, not through new evidence, through new analysis of old evidence. And the Asha Degree case has plenty of old evidence. The backpack, the t-shirt, the items from the shed, the items of interest from the Deadman property, all of it sitting in an evidence locker somewhere, waiting for technology to catch up, for the right analyst to take another look, for the breakthrough that solves everything. But technology can't answer every question. It can't tell us why Asha left her house that night. It can't tell us who convinced her to leave. It can't tell us what she was thinking as she walked along Highway 18 in the rain. Was she scared? Was she excited? Did she know she was in danger? Or did she believe she was safe? Think about what it takes to get a 9-year-old to leave home at 3:30 in the morning, in the dark, in the rain, without telling her parents, without bringing adequate clothing. It takes persuasion, manipulation, A level of trust that overrides every instinct, every warning, every fear. Whoever convinced Asha to leave had to be someone she trusted completely. Someone who'd earned that trust over time. Someone who knew exactly what to say, and exactly when to say it. This brings us back to grooming. Because that's what grooming does. It builds trust. It isolates the victim from protective influences. It makes the groomer the most important person in the victim's life. More important than parents. More important than safety. And it does it so gradually that no one notices until it's too late. Here's what grooming might have looked like in Asha's case. Stage 1. Establishing contact. Someone in her life. School, church, basketball. Someone who paid attention to her. Made her feel special. Noticed when she did well. Comforted her when she struggled. Stage 2. Building trust. Small kindnesses. Compliments. Encouragement. You're so smart. You're such a good player. Your parents are lucky to have you. Creating a bond. Stage 3. Creating secrets. I got you something, but don't tell your parents. It'll be our secret. Let's practice basketball together, but don't mention it. It'll be a surprise. I know your parents don't understand you like I do. Driving a wedge between Asha and her family. Making the groomer the confidant. The ally. Stage 4. Testing boundaries. Can you meet me after church for a few minutes? Can you call me when your parents aren't listening? Can you keep a secret, even from your mom? Seeing how far Asha will go. How much she'll hide. How much control the groomer has. Stage 5. The ask. I need your help with something important. Can you meet me Monday night? It's a surprise. Don't bring a jacket. We'll be inside. If anyone tries to stop you, don't listen. They'll ruin everything. And Asha, trusting completely, does what she's told. If grooming is what happened, then the person who took Asha is still out there. Living their life. Going to work. Interacting with people. Maybe even with other children. That's the terrifying part of cases like this. Predators don't look like monsters. They look like everyone else. They coach Little League. They teach Sunday school. They work at schools. They're trusted. Respected. Until they're not. The FBI profile of child predators is specific. They're often authority figures. They're patient. They groom multiple victims over time. They keep trophies. And they rarely stop on their own. Which raises a critical question in Asha's case. If someone took her, was she the first? Or were there others? Investigators have looked into this. They've examined other missing children cases in North Carolina around the same time. They've looked for patterns. Similar circumstances. Similar victims. Similar methods. And they found nothing conclusive. No other cases that match Asha's disappearance exactly. Which could mean Asha was the only victim. Or it could mean the other victims haven't been identified yet. Or it could mean the perpetrator changed their method after Asha. Learned from what went wrong. Adapted. Here's what might have gone wrong from a perpetrator's perspective. Asha was seen. 2 witnesses spotted her on Highway 18. One of them tried to help. That wasn't part of the plan. If someone was orchestrating Asha's disappearance, they wouldn't have wanted her walking alone on a highway. Visible. Exposed. At risk of being stopped. Which suggests something went wrong. A miscommunication. A change in plans. Something that forced Asha onto that highway when she shouldn't have been there. Let's reconstruct what might have been supposed to happen. Scenario 1. Asha leaves her house. Walks a short distance. Gets picked up. No highway. No witnesses. No exposure. Clean. But that's not what happened. Asha walked over a mile. In the rain. In the dark. Before she was seen. Why? Possibility 1. She was supposed to be picked up near her house, but the person never showed. So Asha kept walking. Waiting. Looking for them. Getting further from home. Until she ended up on Highway 18. Possibility 2. She was told to walk to a specific meeting place. The shed, maybe. And she was following those instructions. Possibility 3. She left on her own for reasons we don't understand, and the perpetrator only intercepted her after she was already on the highway. An opportunistic abduction. The problem with the opportunistic abduction theory is the backpack. The backpack suggests planning. Someone knew Asha had a backpack. Someone took it after she disappeared. Someone kept it for months. Then buried it. That's not opportunistic. That's calculated. Which brings us back to premeditation. Someone planned this. They planned when Asha would leave. They planned what she would bring. They planned where she would go. And they planned what would happen to the evidence afterward. The only thing they didn't plan for was Asha being seen. And that one detail has kept this case alive for 25 years. Because those witnesses changed everything. Without them, Asha would have simply vanished from her bed. No one would know she left on her own. No one would know she was walking south on Highway 18. No one would know she ran into the woods. The case would be a mystery with no direction. But the witnesses gave investigators something. A timeline, a location, a direction, and most importantly, proof of life. Proof that Asha was alive and mobile at 4:15 a.m. on February 14th. Which narrows the window. Which focuses the investigation. Which gives hope. Let's talk about the community response. Because in small towns like Shelby, everyone knows everyone. When a child goes missing, it's personal. Neighbors searched. Churches organized prayer vigils. Businesses put up posters. The annual walk from the Degree home to Asha's billboard has become a tradition. Hundreds of people participate every year, walking the route Asha walked. In solidarity, in memory, in hope. It's a powerful gesture, but it's also a reminder that 25 years later, nothing has changed. Asha is still missing, and someone in that community might know why. Statistically, in cases where children are abducted, the perpetrator is usually local. Someone who knows the area. Someone who knows the victim. Someone who blends in. In Asha's case, that means someone from Shelby. Someone who was there in 2000. Someone who might still be there now. Walking past the billboard. Attending the vigils. Watching. There's a psychological phenomenon called injecting oneself into the investigation. Perpetrators sometimes insert themselves into searches. Volunteer to help. Attend press conferences. Express concern. It gives them a sense of control. It lets them monitor what investigators know. And it feeds a need to be close to the crime. To relive it. Did someone do that in Asha's case? Was there a volunteer searcher who was too helpful? A community member who asked too many questions? Someone who seemed overly invested in the case? Investigators look for these patterns. And in a case this old, they've had 25 years to watch. To wait. To see who stays involved. Let's return to the Dedmon property. Because the FBI's interest in that location isn't random. They had a reason. A specific, evidence-based reason. What could that reason be? Possibility 1. Witness testimony. Someone came forward and said they saw Asha at that property. Or saw a vehicle matching the description there. Or heard something that placed Asha there. Witness testimony, especially decades later, is unreliable. Memories fade. Details blur. But if multiple witnesses said the same thing, it would be enough for a warrant. Possibility 2. Forensic evidence. DNA from the backpack matched someone connected to the property. Or soil samples from the backpack matched soil from the property. Or fiber evidence linked the two locations. Forensic matches are powerful. They're objective. Scientific. Hard to dispute. If the FBI found a forensic link, it would explain the search. Possibility 3. Digital evidence. Cell phone records. Computer data. Surveillance footage. Technology in 2000 was limited. But investigators can go back and analyze old data with new tools. Maybe they found something in historical records. A call made from near the Degree home to a number connected to the Dedmon property. A vehicle registered to someone at that address spotted on traffic cameras. A digital footprint that places someone from that property in Asha's orbit. Possibility 4. Confession or admission. Someone talked. Maybe Roy Dedmon Sr. said something before he died. To a family member. A friend. A nurse. A deathbed confession. Or maybe someone else connected to the property admitted knowledge. Not full culpability. But enough. Enough to justify a search. Enough to move forward. The FBI hasn't revealed which of these possibilities is correct. Maybe it's a combination. Maybe it's something else entirely. But they had enough to convince a judge to issue a warrant. And in a case this old, that's significant. Here's what happens next in cases like this. The FBI analyzes the evidence they collected. They run tests. DNA. Fingerprints. Soil composition. They compare results to existing evidence from the original investigation. They look for matches. And then they wait for lab results. Which can take months. Or years. Especially with backlogged crime labs and limited resources. But while they wait, they keep investigating. They interview people connected to the property. Family members. Friends. Neighbors. Anyone who might have information. They ask questions. Did you know Asha Degree? Did you ever see her at this property? Do you remember anything unusual happening in February of 2000? Has anyone in your family ever mentioned her? And they listen. For hesitations. For contradictions. For lies. Because people who are lying often reveal themselves. Not in what they say, but in what they don't say. Let's talk about the Degree family again, because they've lived with this for 25 years. Aquila Degree has said she doesn't celebrate birthdays anymore, doesn't celebrate holidays. Can't, because every celebration is a reminder of who's missing. Harold Degree has stayed quieter publicly, but the grief is there. In every interview, every photograph, the weight of not knowing. O'Brien, Asha's older brother, was 10 when she disappeared. He's 35 now. He's lived most of his life without his sister. He shared a room with her. He was one of the last people to see her. Does he remember that night? Does he remember if Asha seemed different? Nervous? Excited? Or does he remember nothing unusual at all? Those memories, if they exist, might hold clues. Siblings often notice things parents miss. Small changes in behavior. Whispered phone calls. Secrets. If Asha was being groomed, O'Brien might have seen something. Even if he didn't understand it at the time. Even if it seemed innocent. Investigators have interviewed him multiple times over the years, asking him to remember, to think back, to find anything, no matter how small, that might help. One detail O'Brien has mentioned in interviews is that Asha seemed happy, normal. There was no indication she was planning to leave. No indication she was scared or upset, which supports the grooming theory. Because groomed children often appear happy. They believe they're part of something special, something secret, something exciting. They don't realize they're being manipulated. They don't realize they're in danger until it's too late. Let's talk about what Asha might have experienced after she left the shed, because that's where the trail goes cold. After 4:15 a.m., when she ran into the woods, there are no more confirmed sightings. No more physical evidence found in real time. Just the backpack, 18 months later. Which means Asha was somewhere. With someone. For at least 18 months. Or her backpack was. If Asha was alive during those 18 months, where was she? Was she held somewhere? Hidden? Was she told her family didn't want her back? Was she told she couldn't leave? Children who are abducted and held captive often develop what's called traumatic bonding. A psychological attachment to their captor. They start to believe what they're told. They stop trying to escape. They adapt. Survive. There have been cases where children were held for years. J.C. Dugard was held for 18 years. Elizabeth Smart was held for 9 months. The 3 women in Cleveland were held for over a decade. They survived. They were found. Could Asha have survived? Could she still be out there? 34 years old now. Maybe not even knowing people are looking for her. Maybe convinced her family abandoned her. Maybe so psychologically damaged she can't reach out. It's possible. Unlikely, but possible. The more likely scenario, the one investigators privately believe, is that Asha didn't survive long after she disappeared. That whoever took her killed her, either intentionally or accidentally, and disposed of her body somewhere it hasn't been found. North Carolina has vast stretches of rural land, forest lakes, rivers, places where a body could remain hidden for decades, despite searches, despite technology, despite effort. But if Asha is deceased, where is she? The FBI has searched. They've used ground-penetrating radar, cadaver dogs, aerial surveys. They've followed up on hundreds of tips about potential burial sites. And they found nothing, which means either they haven't looked in the right place yet, or whoever disposed of her body was extremely careful, or both. The backpack's burial suggests care, suggests someone who knew what they were doing, someone who'd thought it through. If that same person disposed of Asha's body, they would have done it carefully too. Not in a shallow grave that could be disturbed. Not in a place easily accessible. Somewhere remote. Somewhere they could return to if needed. Somewhere that felt safe. To them. This is where geographic profiling comes in. The FBI uses software that analyzes crime scene locations. Where the victim was taken. Where evidence was found. Where the perpetrator lives or works. It creates a probability map, showing the most likely areas where the perpetrator has a connection. In Asha's case, that map would include the Degree home in Shelby, Highway 18, where she was seen, the shed behind Turner Upholstery, the burial site of the backpack in Burke County, the Deadman property on Cherryville Road. All of these locations form a geographic cluster, and somewhere within that cluster is a person who knows what happened. That person might be in prison for something else. They might have moved away. They might be deceased. Or they might still be in Shelby, living quietly, watching the investigation from a distance, believing they got away with it. But here's the thing about cold cases. They don't stay cold forever. Someone always talks. Eventually, a witness comes forward. A relative finds something. A deathbed confession. A moment of guilt. It happens. And when it does, everything changes. 25 years is a long time to keep a secret. Long enough that the weight of it changes you. Long enough that guilt finds cracks in even the strongest walls. Long enough that someone who was protecting someone else might decide they're done protecting. And that's what the FBI is counting on. Time. Because time does something to people involved in crimes like this. It isolates them. The person who knows what happened to Asha has lived with that knowledge every single day since February 14th, 2000. Every time they see her face on a billboard. Every time the case is mentioned in the news. Every time the anniversary comes around. They're reminded. And that reminder wears on you. There's also the people around them. Family members who might have suspicions. Friends who noticed odd behavior. Spouses who found something they couldn't explain. Someone knows something. Maybe they don't know they know. Maybe they've rationalized it away. Maybe they've told themselves it couldn't possibly mean what they think it means. But somewhere, in someone's memory, is a detail that matters. A comment made in passing. A vehicle seen in the wrong place. A shirt that looks familiar. An absence that was never explained. The FBI has received thousands of tips over the years. Thousands. Some credible. Some not. Some from well-meaning people who thought they saw something. Some from attention seekers who wanted to be part of the story. Each tip has to be investigated. Each one has to be followed to its conclusion. Because you never know which one will be the one that breaks the case. In 2016, when the FBI released the vehicle description, tips poured in. People remembered seeing dark green Lincoln Continentals. People remembered family members who owned them. People remembered them parked in odd places. One of those tips led to the Deadman property. We know that now. But at the time, it was just one tip among hundreds. One lead in a sea of possibilities. And the FBI followed it. Quietly. Methodically. Building their case over years. Until they were ready to move. The 2024 search wasn't the end. It was a step. A significant step. But not the conclusion. Because the FBI doesn't announce conclusions until arrests are made. Until charges are filed. Until they're certain they can prove what happened in court. And they're not there yet. Which means the investigation continues. Here's what the public doesn't see. The hours of analysis. The meetings with prosecutors. The debates about whether the evidence is strong enough. The decisions about when to move and when to wait. Because in a case this old, you only get one shot. If you arrest someone and the evidence isn't strong enough, they walk. Double jeopardy attaches. You can't try them again. So the FBI waits. Until they're absolutely certain. Until every piece of evidence has been analyzed. Until every witness has been interviewed. Until every alternative explanation has been ruled out. But while they wait, the Degree family lives in limbo. Not knowing is its own kind of torture. Worse, in some ways, than knowing the worst. Because not knowing means you can't grieve. You can't move forward. You can't find closure. You're suspended in a moment that never ends. Waiting. Always waiting. For news that might never come. Asha Degree has said she thinks about Asha every single day. Every single day for 25 years. That's over 9,000 days. 9,000 mornings waking up and remembering her daughter is gone. 9,000 nights going to bed without answers. 9,000 days of hope and heartbreak. How do you survive that? How do you get up every morning and keep going? For Asha, it's faith. She believes Asha is alive. She believes God is protecting her. She believes one day she'll see her daughter again. That belief, whether true or not, is what keeps her moving forward. Harold Degree carries it differently. Quieter. But the pain is the same. He was the last person to see Asha in her bed. The last person to check on her before she disappeared. That memory must haunt him. Did he miss something? Was there a sign he didn't see? A sound he didn't hear? Rationally, he knows there's nothing he could have done. But rationality doesn't ease that kind of guilt. O'Brien has lived his entire adult life without his sister. He graduated high school without her. Went to college without her. Built a life without her. But she's always there. In the empty chair at family gatherings. In the photographs on the wall. In the conversations that stop when her name comes up. She's an absence that's always present. This is what crime does to families. It doesn't just take the victim. It takes the future. The graduations. The weddings. The grandchildren. All the moments that should have happened, but never will. The Degree family has been robbed of 25 years of moments with Asha. And no arrest will give them back. No conviction will undo that loss. Justice, if it comes, will be cold comfort. But it still matters. Because someone did this. Someone made a choice. A choice to take Asha. To hide her. To bury her backpack. To let her family suffer. And that person needs to be held accountable. Not just for Asha, but for every child who's ever been taken. For every family that's ever waited for answers. To send a message that you don't get away with this. Not forever. Let's talk about what justice would look like in this case. If the FBI makes an arrest, if charges are filed, the case will go to trial. And trials are hard. Especially in cases this old. Witnesses' memories have faded. Physical evidence has degraded. Defendants have had decades to prepare their defense. To craft their story. To destroy evidence. To silence witnesses. Proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt is difficult, but not impossible. The prosecution would build their case on physical evidence. The backpack, the t-shirt, the items from the shed, DNA, fibers, soil samples. They'd call the witnesses who saw Asha on Highway 18. They'd establish a timeline. They'd show opportunity. They'd show motive, if they can determine one. And they'd connect the defendant to Asha. Through evidence. Through witness testimony. Through circumstantial proof. The defense would attack every piece of evidence. Question every witness. Create reasonable doubt. The DNA is contaminated. The timeline doesn't work. The witnesses are mistaken. My client had no connection to Asha. You can't prove anything. And they might be right. Because the burden of proof is high. As it should be. But juries understand child abduction cases. They understand the horror of what happened. And if the evidence is strong enough, they'll convict. They'll look at the totality of the circumstances. The buried backpack. The unidentified DNA. The vehicle of interest. The search of the property. The items removed. The pattern of behavior. And they'll reach a conclusion. Guilty. If that happens, sentencing will bring its own questions. Because in North Carolina, there's no statute of limitations on felonies involving children. Murder. Kidnapping. Sexual assault. They can be prosecuted decades later. And they carry severe penalties. Life in prison. Or in some cases, death. But punishment doesn't bring Asha back. It doesn't undo what happened. It doesn't heal the wound. Still, it matters. Because accountability matters. Because society has to stand up and say, this is unacceptable. You don't harm children. You don't destroy families. You don't steal futures. And if you do, you will be found. Eventually. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year. But eventually. Because cases like Asha's don't go away. The FBI has made this clear. They're not giving up. They're not moving on. They're not relegating Asha's case to a dusty file in a basement. They're actively investigating. Following leads. Analyzing evidence. Building their case. And when they're ready, they'll move. In the meantime, the public can help. If you know anything about Asha's disappearance, contact the FBI. If you recognize the New Kids on the Block t-shirt, contact the FBI. If you saw a dark green Lincoln Continental or Ford Thunderbird in Shelby in February 2000, contact the FBI. If someone you know has acted strangely about this case, contact the FBI. If you have any information, no matter how small, contact the FBI. Because tips matter. Someone out there knows something. And that something could be the piece that solves this. There's a reward of $75,000 for information leading to Asha's whereabouts. That's not insignificant. But more than money, there's the opportunity to do the right thing. To give a family answers. To bring a child home. Even if home means a grave. Even if home means closure instead of reunion. It's something. After 25 years of nothing, something would be everything. So where does that leave us? 25 years after Asha Degree walked out of her house and into the dark. With more questions than answers. With evidence, but no arrest. With hope, but no resolution. Asha would be 34 years old now. If she's alive, she's a woman. With a quarter-century of life her family knows nothing about. Memories they don't share. Experiences they weren't part of. A whole existence separate from the 9 years they knew her. If she's not alive, then somewhere her body rests. In a place her family can't visit. Can't mourn. Can't lay flowers. Denied even the dignity of a grave. Either way, she's gone. And someone knows why? Here's what we know for certain. Asha Degree left her home willingly on February 14, 2000. She was seen walking south on Highway 18. She ran into the woods when someone tried to help her. Her belongings were found in a shed. Her backpack was found buried 18 months later. A vehicle of interest was identified. A property was searched. Items were recovered. The investigation is ongoing. And someone, somewhere, has the answers. Here's what we believe, based on evidence and patterns. Asha was groomed by someone she knew. Someone convinced her to leave her house in the middle of the night. Something went wrong with the plan. Asha ended up walking along a highway instead of being picked up immediately. Someone intercepted her after she was seen. That someone had her long enough to access her belongings. That someone buried her backpack to hide evidence. That someone may be connected to the Deadman property. And that someone is the key to solving this case. But belief isn't proof. And until the FBI has proof strong enough to secure a conviction, they wait. We all wait. Asha's family waits. The community waits. Everyone who's followed this case for 25 years waits. For justice. For answers. For Asha. If you're watching this and you know something, this is your moment. 25 years is long enough. Long enough for guilt to build. Long enough for circumstances to change. Long enough for protection to feel less important than truth. Come forward. Do the right thing. Give Asha's family what they deserve. Peace. And if you're watching this and you don't know anything, you can still help. Share Asha's story. Keep her name alive. Talk about the case. Keep pressure on investigators. Keep the public's attention focused. Because attention leads to tips. Tips lead to leads. Leads lead to breakthroughs. And breakthroughs lead to justice. Asha Degree deserves justice. She deserves to be found. She deserves for the world to know what happened to her. And her family deserves to stop waiting. After 9,000 days, they deserve an answer. Even if it's the answer they've feared all along. Because knowing, even the worst truth, is better than this endless uncertainty. So we end where we began. With a 9-year-old girl walking into the dark. Alone. Afraid, maybe. Or trusting someone she shouldn't have. We don't know. Not yet. But one day we will. Because the truth has a way of emerging. Even after 25 years. Even when it seems buried forever. Truth finds light. And when it does, Asha's story will finally have an ending. Until then, we remember her. Not as a mystery. Not as a cold case. But as a child. A daughter. A sister. A student. A friend. A little girl who loved basketball and Dr. Seuss. Who was afraid of dogs and the dark. Who smiled in photographs. Who deserved to grow up. Who deserved to live. Asha Degree. Born August 5, 1990. Missing February 14, 2000. Still missing. Still remembered. Still loved. If you have any information about Asha's disappearance, please contact the FBI Charlotte Field Office, 704-672-6100. The Cleveland County Sheriff's Office, 704-484-4822. Or submit a tip online at tips.fbi.gov. And if you've made it this far, thank you for listening to Asha's story. Thank you for caring about a little girl who disappeared 25 years ago. Thank you for keeping her memory alive. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with anyone who might have information or who might care about bringing Asha home. Leave a comment with your thoughts, theories, or memories of the case. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's keep the pressure on. Let's keep hoping for answers. For Asha. For her family. For justice.